Time for a new episode of The Neal Brown Show. Nick Farrell here, filling in for Tony Caridi alongside the coach of the Mountaineers, Neal Brown. It's time for the Encova Insurance Coach's Corner. Encova Insurance encircling you with coverage. Coach, you've talked about being intentional about enjoying this final week of the regular season. Why?
Well, it's Thanksgiving week, and football and Thanksgiving go together. And this is the last week for this 2019 football team, and I think it's really important that we enjoy being around each other, and we finish this in the right fashion.
West Virginia comes away with a 3-point victory, and after enduring a 5-game losing streak during the regular season, the Mountaineers end the year with 2 wins in their final 3 games, and we said that this one might have been a defensive showdown. I think that would be the case, and even though TCU had more total yards on the day than West Virginia, quarterback Max Duggan for the Horned Frogs completed fewer than 50% of his passes, and it had a lot to do with the pressure the defensive line put on him throughout the day, continuing to prove that throughout this season the D-line has been one of West Virginia's strongest assets.
First, Nick, a key for West Virginia to start 2-0. What do you got for us?
I think it has to be contain Kelly Bryant. You saw Wyoming able to do that with some success last week. Big reason why the Cowboys were victorious, pulled off an upset against the Tigers. Bryant, while he threw for 423 yards, you may say, how did they really contain him? What they did was they forced takeaways, 2 from Bryant, 1 an interception that led to a touchdown, in fact an interception in the end zone, and then the other that was a strip that was taken back for an immediate 6 points, a scoop and score. If West Virginia, which had 3 takeaways last week, can continue to have success with turnovers, that's going to be huge for the Mountaineers. So the first scenario that you mentioned involves Martell Pettaway, West Virginia's senior running back. It was announced after the game against Iowa State that Pettaway was held out of the game because the plan now is for Pettaway to redshirt this season. He's going to take advantage of the NCAA's new 4-game redshirt rule, and just to recap that very quickly, you can play in up to 4 games and still redshirt. It's very useful for newcomers, for freshmen, but it can also be utilized for a guy like Pettaway who didn't have an opportunity to redshirt.
What went wrong for West Virginia?
I think a lot of things did, Angelica, and I think that the players and Coach Huggins admitted that after the fact. The biggest issue for WVU was it seemed that it didn't show up to play. Kansas State was a team that was desperate, winless in the Big 12, going up against a team that a win over West Virginia at the time, number 12 in the country, would really make its season, maybe turn it around. Let's just turn back the clock very quickly for a moment. About a year ago, West Virginia had this exact same scenario at the WVU Coliseum, winless in Big 12, taking on nationally ranked Kansas, and, well, what happened there? WVU pulls off an upset, huge upset, one of its biggest wins of the season last year. It's almost like that exact same scenario unfolded for Kansas State against WVU, and the Mountaineers are on the losing end of it.
Nick, a key to victory against the Tigers for the Mountaineers.
I'm stealing one from you from previous weeks. It's got to be turnovers for West Virginia. West Virginia took much better care of the ball against Texas than it did against Kansas State. That game against the Wildcats, 18 turnovers for 28 KSU points. But against Texas, they forced the Longhorns to commit 18 turnovers, turned it into 24 WVU points. I once heard from a coach, Angelica, that you've got to treat possession like the goose that laid the golden egg. West Virginia did that against Texas and obviously had a much more favorable result.
What's a key to victory for West Virginia against the Bears?
An uncharacteristic struggle that West Virginia is enduring right now is an inability to score in the paint. West Virginia, on just 3 occasions this season in Big 12 play, has scored under 50% in a game inside the paint. Twice against Kansas, most recently that game Wednesday night here at the Coliseum, and then shot below 40% inside the paint on the road against Oklahoma. The common thread in all of those games, all 3 of them, losses. If West Virginia can figure things out with its post game and start to generate more scoring, that's going to benefit the Mountaineers, because there have been some games that West Virginia has dominated, scoring 60% or 70% inside the paint. The problem is Baylor is a very good defensive team. 3rd in the Big 12 in field goal defense, right behind Kansas and WVU. You could argue that WVU versus Kansas is a tough matchup for the Mountaineers because it has really good post players, the Jayhawks do. Same can be said for Baylor. This is a tough matchup, but the Mountaineers need to straighten things out in that category.